Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the SaaS Marketing Show. Today, I'm joined by Raul, who is the partner manager at Referral Candy. And so Referral Candy is a referral marketing SaaS that helps people get more customers by incentivizing referrals. They were founded back in 2010, have over 30,000 brands that have used the product and have generated more than $220 million in referral sales. And Referral Candy themselves are now doing 7 figures in ARR, which is really great. So Raul, I'm really excited to have you here. Welcome to today's show.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, no problem. So today we're going to be talking specifically about partnership, like Referral Candy's partnership strategy. When we were chatting like back and forth about setting up this episode, I know there are a number of different areas or elements that we could have discussed, but I wanted to focus on partnerships because you said that's one thing that has been pretty successful for the business. Obviously, that's like your role as partnerships manager. You're obviously spending a lot of time within partnerships. And so I know from my experience with the clients, the SaaS companies that we work with, that we run ads for, my experience before that when I used to work in SaaS companies, and like part of my role was trying to build partnership relationships too. It's an area that can be very successful for SaaS companies if figured out and if working well, but it's a challenging spot for people to begin with. So maybe before like going super deep on that, do you want to give like an overview as to, I would love to find out what things look like at Referral Candy in terms of what the partnership program or partners actually look like for you guys, because I'm sure there's probably different types too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like partnerships, referrals, affiliates, like they can all be interchanged and all have different meanings. So maybe you could just set the scene a little bit as to what Referral Candy looks like as a marketing and like sales team at the moment and how partnerships fits in. And then we can go into a bit more of the strategy around what you guys have built.
Yeah, absolutely. Just also a little bit of background about the company. We started in 2010. This is actually our 10-year anniversary as a company. And back in 2010, the e-commerce space was a lot different than what it is right now. Even though I joined the company 4 years ago as like the first partner manager at the company, the reality is that Referral Candy has been doing partnerships from pretty much day one. And that's been one of the key drivers of our success from day one, especially in terms of partnerships with platforms. So as you can imagine, working in the e-commerce space, Shopify, has been, a really great partner from the very beginning that has really shaped us as a company and what we do now, but also partnerships with other platforms like BigCommerce, WooCommerce, etc. So it's been an approach that we've probably been doing from day one without really noticing that it was like a strategy itself. It's something that came up naturally. And then when I joined the company 4 years ago, we figured out ways that, okay, let's categorize partners, as you mentioned. What are different partners that we can work with and what's their role for each one of them? Just to give you an idea of the different buckets that we have when we understand in terms of partners, platforms will be one of them. So the examples that I just mentioned. Then we also have affiliates. So there's a lot of people out there that are generating content about e-commerce that could really use Referral Candy as an affiliate partner there. Then we also have other SaaS companies that are working in the e-commerce space that we're constantly doing stuff with each other, whether it's webinars or events or kind of joint promos, that kind of thing. So that's something that we're doing on a regular basis. And then also agencies. That's probably one of the efforts that probably took the most to get set up. It's probably one of the most challenging spaces that I've encountered in my life. I come from a sales background, and I initially approached this kind of like agency partnership approach with a more like a sales approach, building a funnel and getting on sales calls and that kind of stuff. And then quickly realized that it's a completely different animal that you kind of have to treat differently, and they have a different set of priorities. And so before we actually built our agency program that we're running right now, and that it's quite successful, we did a lot of research. Like we spent like over 6 months just interviewing agencies that were working with us, or companies that were using competitors, or companies that never heard of us, just asking them what does an ideal partnership look like for you. The result of that ended up being the last pillar of our partnerships, which is agencies. So yeah, those are like the main different areas that we're covering at the company right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm interested for you personally, like in a partnerships, like partner manager role. Do you see that do you see yourself as a sales role, as a marketing role? Because it must be a huge mix, right? Because for example, what you said about the agency partnerships, like the approach is very different to then like building a relationship with someone at Shopify, for example. Like how do you don't need to categorize yourself by any means, but I'm just interested because I know that's maybe something too for any of the like earlier stage SaaS founders that are listening when they're thinking like, okay, we want to start trying to build out some partnerships, but like, do I get that person on looking at purely them being like numbers, sales, target driven? Are they involved in marketing too? What does it look like for you at Referral Candy? Like, are you working a lot with the marketing team? Do you guys have a sales team? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So when I started, it was more like a standalone effort. And myself coming from sales, that's the approach that I followed at the beginning. So like I said, let's target a set of companies that we want to work with, reach out to them, get them through some sort of funnel, and we have some sort of conversion metric at the end to consider them closed or lost. But the reality is that as the months went by, we realized that this was more a marketing effort than sales. And even more when we did that research of talking to agencies and kind of understanding what does a successful partnership look like for them. And so I would say if a company is looking to get started into partnerships, also every company is different, but in like the SaaS world in which we operate, I would say it's more of a marketing role than a sales role itself. I think a marketing person will have kind of a shorter runway in terms of getting up to speed on the role than a salesperson might get a little bit confused, like it was my case. But it's definitely a mix. You got to have some sort of experience in terms of sales, because you have to do demos, you have to follow up, you have to come up with ways of attracting people. But at the same time, there's a lot of marketing involved. There's a lot of co-marketing actions you have to think about. There's it's not just calls. There's a lot of activities that you got to build in the meantime. So I think it's a pretty mixed role. But if I had to lean on one of those areas, I would probably go for marketing.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm interested to talk about, obviously we have the different kind of partnerships that you mentioned, right? Like the affiliates, the agencies, the platforms, for example. So we did an episode of the SaaS Marketing Show. I can't remember when it was, maybe a couple months ago, with the CEO of a company called Up Content, Scott Rogers. He's one of our clients too. And he has a very small team, like a team of, I don't know what it is right now, but last time I spoke to him or we were talking about it, it was maybe four people max, like a very small team, but selling into a lot of enterprise deals now. And so they built really solid partnerships with Hootsuite. Was the first one. That's how Scott and I actually met. It was like 4 years ago when I worked at Hootsuite. He was like building relationships with the Hootsuite team back then. Yeah. And so like now a lot of their deal flow and success comes from their partnerships with companies like Hootsuite is a big one for them, HubSpot, for example. And we did a really interesting episode kind of talking about how you can sell to the enterprise without necessarily needing like this big enterprise sales team through like very strategic partnerships that you build. Now, I'm interested in finding out for you guys. I know when we said we're going to talk about the partnership strategy that's helped you guys grow. Obviously, there's multiple like strategies within the strategy, right? So I don't know how you want to get started. Whether you want to like break down by referral or like partner type, or whether there's something that you want to begin with, because there's so many routes that we could go down with this. So I'd love to hear from you what's top of mind for you when building out your partnership strategy and what you're working on that's been really successful. Maybe we can start there, and I know that I have a few kind of questions that will be coming up as we run through that too, because I am really interested as to find out what's working the best for you. And you don't have to share like any specific numbers or anything like that, but I think it would also be interesting for people listening if they could get any kind of insight as to like how much of an impact the partnerships thing has on the business, because I think it would probably surprise some people is my guess.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, just what you just mentioned about enterprise sales, I would say that's a totally different animal in terms of partnerships, because that you're probably talking about resellers there, and that's more of a sales background. You need probably somebody with a sales background there rather than the marketing type that I was talking about before, because there you're talking about deals in which the size of the deal requires somebody. It's a longer sales cycle, really pays off at the end of the day, and there's a lot more like sales items that are into that process rather than like the one that we're probably talking about in this space. So I would say there are two kind of like different ways of approaching resellers. And if you're selling a software that's several tens of thousands of dollars a year, then you're probably looking into that kind of thing. And then you're looking into resellers, which is, again, it's a totally different kind of animal. But so in terms of, I would say, categorizing partnerships, at least on our end, the number one has been working with platforms. So as you can imagine, Shopify has really been one of the main drivers of our growth over the years, still is. The whole e-commerce industry is growing at a really fast speed, especially this past few months. And Shopify, they've been releasing some crazy numbers over the past few months due to the whole like lockdowns and everything. I think in April, they were recording higher traffic numbers than the Black Friday season last year, which is crazy. But at the same time, that brings pretty much all their partners with them into that wave. I was listening to the interview with Privy that you did a couple of weeks ago. And again, and they also mentioned the fact that like being on that ecosystem has been really very interesting for them. It's the same here. So if there's one partnership or one category of partnerships, it will be that. It will be platforms. Again, not only Shopify, also WooCommerce, BigCommerce, that they definitely drive referrals to us. And then after that, it's interesting because, as I was mentioning, for like kind of bigger enterprise type of partnerships, you're looking more into a sales process. So it's straightforward, I would say. For us, it's more like a marketing role in the sense that we have different strategies that we're doing under partnerships. So one of them, for example, it's having content partners. So another strategy that has worked extremely well for us from the very beginning has been basically organic search, working on SEO from day one. And that drives about half of the traffic that we get, and half of the customers that we get are coming from that. And working on with SEO partners, especially other partners that are in the same industry, that we can tap into their audience by writing for their blogs or kind of like appearing on their content. That has also been really successful for us. And again, it's something that we've been doing for 10 years now. So it's not necessarily something that we've set up in recent years, but it's an approach that we've been evolved in. And then after that, definitely affiliates. And affiliates, you go for volume. So you want to make sure that it's something that you can set and forget at the end of the day. If you build like a robust system for people to being able to get their affiliate link and publish it. By the way, we use Referral Candy for that as well. Get the referral link, being able to place it on whether it's their YouTube channel or their blog, and you get paid for driving those referrals. It doesn't require probably a lot of management, but you gotta make sure that you're always like hiring new affiliates, or that at least you make it visible for affiliates that that they can work with you in that way. But then for agencies, I'll say it's the opposite approach. We rather work with a handful of agencies that are driving us quality customers rather than throw the net out there and see how many agencies we can catch. I like working with a somewhat small number of agencies that we know pretty well, that we can get on the phone with them if we need to, that they can also reach out to us very easily if there's anything that comes up. And also, we do a lot of co-marketing action. So with agencies as well, we love bringing agencies in front of our audience. So for example, we're about to publish a blog post with quotes from our partner agencies about Black Friday and Cyber Monday, how they're approaching that, which is going to help them get in front of our pool of not only customers, but also people that visit our blog. We create webinars just to bring them in front of our audience and let them share their expertise. So it's a mix in terms of working with tech partners, working with affiliates, but also working with agencies in which you have a probably more personal type of relationship, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. It's so interesting, like the platform section. You're right, because I did that interview with Dan from Privy a couple of weeks ago now when we recorded that. And it's if you have a business that operates within the e-commerce world, like it makes so much sense to like just put so much time and energy and attention into like relationships with Shopify and, as you said, like some of the other providers out there also, because it's incredible how much traffic are coming from those guys. So we had Privy on the show and he shared some numbers in the interview and then some things with me afterwards. And then there's a company, so I'm based in Estonia, and we used to work with an Estonian SaaS company here called Katana, which is like a MRP software for e-commerce. If you have a product that you make, let's say I make these, I know people listening won't be able to see this, but I make these like phone holders or something, and then I oh, there we go, we got the same one. And it's like, okay, if every time I need to make one, I need to track my inventory and everything else. That's what they do. And so much of their traffic and their sign-up volume was from just the Shopify app store. It was crazy. So like in the e-commerce world, or if you have something that can tie into that space, and it really makes sense to double down there. I'm interested. I know you said when you joined the business like 4 years ago, the partnership and partners like program had been happening naturally without someone dedicated to it. When you came in and when you first started, or even like now when you're thinking about starting a new initiative or something to generate more performance from your partners or affiliates, like where do you begin? Like, where do you start? Because obviously there are so many routes. Like we've had people come on the show and do episodes specifically about affiliates, for example. So like we had one of the guys from the affiliate marketing team at ClickFunnels, like they're probably the most well-known for their affiliate program around the world. So we had some really good insight from like how to promote those programs, like how to, they offer like crazy incentives to get more and more people involved. And then we have shows like this where we talk about the different options too and what you guys have built. And then the show like I mentioned with Scott from Up Content, where it's more the enterprise approach. I know that people can maybe sometimes get a bit overwhelmed when it comes to building out their partners program. So where do you recommend people begin, and what's been in your experience, whether it's at Referral Candy, other businesses that you deal with also, what do you think is like a solid place to get started that's going to have a high impact? Because there are so many options to take, and I know it'll be different for everyone, but I'm interested because you're in this like day to day. I would love to find out your thoughts on that.
I would say the first, so if you have no clue where to start, which is, it was my place when I joined the company, to be honest, it's okay, where to start here? I would say to look into your existing customer base. Don't just jump into the conclusion that just because other companies are doing X, that's what's going to work for you, because that's also what I thought at the beginning. And so I would suggest to look into your existing customer base. If you're looking to get into kind of like the agency approach and get in touch with agencies and get them to work with you, look inside your customer base. You probably have agencies already using your product. That's the place to start. Talk to them. Ask them why, how did they get here? Like what? Because they clearly, if you don't have an agency like outreach or some sort of like call to action for agencies to sign up, and they still did, there must be a route that they followed. So I will double down on that. So get to talk to them. And then also what I was mentioning earlier about the research that we did, talk to people. I would say don't jump into conclusions beforehand without talking to the people that are really going to be part of your agency program down the line, or people that could be a good fit, and learn about what are the main incentives for them. So one of the things that we realized is that in our case, which again, not necessarily an enterprise platform, a monetary type of reward for agencies is not necessarily something that they're going to be really interested in, because the rewards that you're going to be able to send them are not going to match with what they already get from clients from doing the work. So at the end of the day, what they're looking for is for a good product. So if you don't have a good product, that's it. There's not that much selling that you can do if they don't have a product that's going to be valuable for their clients. So I would start with that and then build around it. So one of the main benefits that we offer our agencies is the fact that, look, you're going to have another set of eyes looking at those accounts that you're bringing into Referral Candy. So you're going to have people looking over your customer accounts and then proactively reaching out to you and saying, hey, these are things that you can do to improve it. Not necessarily just from a support approach in terms of, hey, something's broken, I have a kind of like a fast lane to somebody to fix it for me. But instead of, hey, these are things that other clients are doing, you might want to look into changing the rewards or adding this email flow to incentivize customers to refer after they make a purchase, that kind of thing. So we enhance the product by adding benefits around it, not necessarily from, hey, if you sign up, we're going to give a kickback for that, which we'll still do because it's something nice and agencies appreciate it, but it's definitely not the main approach. Now, this might not work for other companies. If you're selling a different product, if you're talking to different agencies or different resellers. So, every single company that's looking to get into kind of like an agency or just any sort of partnership, I would start by looking inside the company. Do we have anybody from this category already using our product? If so, why? If so, how we can make their experience better? If so, how can we tell other people like this that this is something that exists and they can benefit from?
Yeah, I think a couple of things that you said that are really especially valuable for people listening to this, I want to pick up on too, is like you learn some of those things by talking to the customers and talking to the people that you want to be in touch with. But the point you mentioned around agencies, and this can tie in not just to agencies but to other businesses too, is like when you're thinking about building out your partnerships program or affiliate program or whatever it is, actually thinking about what's going to be beneficial to those partners and to those affiliates. Because like you said, for example, even us, we're a small agency, a small team, but usually if people send me emails about some kind of affiliate program they want us to look at or work on, most of the time it's companies that I've never heard from before, which is like one thing. I understand you have to do some kind of outreach, but like I'm a lot less likely to just say yes straight off the bat or something like that. But then secondary, the main incentive that most people lead with is, oh, you'll get 10% or 20% or whatever it is commission each month. But if there's a software that's, I don't know, $50 a month or $100 a month or even a couple $100 a month, like really putting the time and effort and energy into building a good relationship and starting to refer it to our clients or anything else, it just doesn't make sense when
Exactly.
that's a tiny portion of what we're selling our services at. But then if it's a case of, okay, it's a tool that we're going to use very frequently with our customers and it supports them, and it means that we have someone additional to help us like take a look at what we're doing, for example, I think that's actually a really great point for how people can get a bit more creative with their programs. Because I think naturally in the SaaS world, it's okay, we're going to do affiliates or partners. We just give them X amount of commission each month, and then give them a couple of pieces of content that they can use, or like maybe give them access to the platform or something. And of course, it's going to work for some people. Like maybe they're more not like business to business relationships or like agency relationships, but where it's just stereotypical affiliate to like want to promote loads of different products, for example. For those individuals, then maybe an extra few $100s a month or something is beneficial. So it's like trying to find the balance of who you're approaching and adjusting the offer to them, I think is something really important that people don't really seem to talk about that too much, even though it seems pretty straightforward and obvious. And also the fact of talking to your initial customer base first as well. That was something that we had the CMO of a company called Bonjoro. They're like a video like follow-up or video platform. So you can tie in Bonjoro with like let's say someone makes a purchase through your store or they sign up for something, it will like filter that information down to your sales team or to whoever else, and there'll be an alert, hey, you should send a personalized video to this person. And it's like very easy to do. They have different flows set up and stuff like that. And when I interviewed them, we talked about their affiliate marketing strategy, and I think like 30% of their revenue was coming from their affiliates. And they actually this has probably changed now, but when they started, they didn't do any outreach to anyone new or anything like that. They just went through their customer list. They looked at, okay, who is using our platform the most, who is sending the most videos, who has the most team members added. Let's start with them. And it's funny how a lot of people actually don't do that when they're thinking about affiliate programs and referral programs. I wonder why that is. I'm not too sure, but yeah, that's a few things that I've picked up from like different learnings of people that I've spoken to about this as well.
Yeah, and also I feel, especially in the affiliates world, that there's people that kind of do this professionally, in the sense that they have a blog that they want to monetize. They might have that might be like their side project or whatever, but there's people that are actively building kind of affiliate partnerships or just getting into this place. Sometimes like advertising, it doesn't have to be extremely obvious, but just advertising it on your website that you have an affiliate program, it will be enough. We've barely done any sort of outreach. And honestly, the outreach that I've done myself for the affiliate program didn't work. We realized that an inbound strategy is just like, okay, let's make it extremely simple for affiliates to sign up. Let's make it very easy for them to understand what's in the affiliate program for them. We run a very simple one, which is, if you get anybody to start a free trial on Referral Candy, you get $20. And that's it. Even if you don't convert after the 30-day free trial, you still get the reward. And we got people interested in that kind of system. And that has worked really well. And the ROI of that affiliate program it's gone very well. I think it's a 5x right now. No complaints there for something that requires very little management. And again, people find it. And I feel like with agencies, at least on our end, has been pretty much a similar approach. The best relationships that we've had with agencies are those that came to us because they were looking for a solution to fix one of their customers' problems, and they found us. And then they saw, oh, do you have an agency program? Okay, let's talk about it. And then from there, you grow a relationship. And that's a long-term relationship. That's another thing that I feel like SaaS companies usually kind of misunderstand when they're approaching partnerships. It's kind of like a switch. You turn it on and agencies start coming in and revenue starts pouring in. It's a longer process. It takes a while. Sometimes it might take 5-6 months from an agency that you kind of like get them interested in the program until they bring the first client. But that's okay, because sometimes it's not up to them. They're not in the fields actively selling your product. They're going to recommend your product if a need arises. And for some products, that need can come up right away. So if you have, I don't know, let's say an email marketing tool, pretty much every single e-commerce company needs an email marketing tool. So that's going to come up more often than others. Referral marketing, it's a marketing strategy. So first of all, the brand has to agree on launching a referral program, and then we'll look into that. So again, it might be really different. For example, SMS marketing, it's really growing these days, but there might still be a lot of companies that are hesitant into getting into SMS marketing. Still a marketing strategy. It's not something that you might need on day one to run your business. It's something that you develop. Like I said, each company is different, and the sales cycle or the conversion rate might be a little bit different, or might be a little bit delayed in the future. But you always got to think about it from that perspective of we're getting into this for the long term and will pay off if done correctly, but we can't really assume that it's something that you switch on and leads start coming in.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think that's something that people need to consider. But there are, of course, as you mentioned, there are ways that you can try and get some of those quick wins too. Like you said, with the $20 program that you guys did, for example, or one thing that Bonjuro suggested was once people hit a certain number of like videos recorded or actions taken within the platform, they have something that pops up, like letting them know about the program, for example, and they actually send them a video about it. Like there are small little triggers that you can utilize, like that aren't actually, as you said, not too much work, but can get you the right kind of referral partners and affiliates and stuff like that in the door too. So yeah, this has been really interesting for me. I know a lot of people listening to this will have found some various different pieces of insight and value in this one as well. So we'll start to wrap up now, just as we're coming towards the end of the time that we have. But I want to say thank you for coming on and sharing a bit more about Referral Candy, what you guys do, what you're working on at the moment. If anyone needs to find you or wants to find you, I'll make sure all of the links are in the show notes behind the podcast. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you think is like really important note to leave people on? Because I know there's so many things that we can discuss, but we only have a certain amount of time to do it. But is there anything that we really missed, or are we good to wrap up there?
I would just say that to look at partnerships. If you're a small company getting started into this, I would say, first of all, having a good product, it's a priority and it's a deal breaker. But then after that, I will look at partnerships from a marketing perspective, in the sense that you can do a lot of experiments and the payoff can be really high. And it doesn't really take that much to get set up on any of these partnership strategies. So if you want to go after other tech companies that are in your same space and build the content or some sort of co-marketing relationship with them, that's something a lot of e-commerce brands are starting to realize too. That, hey, we're selling socks, this company's selling shoes, we can definitely cross-sell to each other, we can cross-promote. So that happens on SaaS as well. So look at it from that perspective of let's go after different types of partnerships. Let's see what comes up and then take it from there. Use that testing approach that we typically use in marketing. It can definitely be applied in partnerships as well.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Like testing the different types of partnerships to see what works for you, like for your business and your audience. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been really enjoyable. It's like good to learn a bit more about you guys. And yeah, thank you for sharing behind the scenes of some of what you're doing to help grow the business. I really enjoyed this one.
My pleasure. Thank you.